This is your news today in 10 minutes. Sit down, buckle up, because I have some stories for you. Anti-ICE protesters in Texas were convicted of terrorism charges and have been sentenced to between 50 and 100 years in prison. We also have a fascinating story about Ukraine's warrior witches that are now directing drone strikes against Russia. The Senate has finally voted, on its 10th try, to block Trump from going to war with Iran. More. We also have some AI-related developments in the Great Reflecting Pool algae saga, some deeply reported tea on Tulsi Gabbard that explains decades of her behavior, and SpaceX's stock is plummeting, though not as low as it deserves to. We have a packed show for you today. I'm Sammy Sage, and here's what's up today. A group of anti-ICE protesters in Texas were convicted of terrorism charges and have been sentenced to between 50 and 100 years in prison, coming after a 3-week jury trial of 9 activists who were all found guilty of criminal charges related to their actions during a 4th of July protest at an ICE detention center near Fort Worth. According to the charges, this group broke off from the main protest and went rogue. They vandalized a guard shack, slashed tires, broke a security camera, and one of them fired an AR-15 at a police officer. That person got a 100-year sentence for attempted murder of an officer. And if these sentences sound unusually long, that's because they are. Normally, a judge would have defendants serving time for each separate count concurrently or overlapping. But in this case, the judge appears to have stacked the sentences for each count consecutively. Also, this case was viewed as particularly important because it was seen as a test case for how courts would handle dissent against the Trump administration. So not great. On a related note, the DOJ indicted 15 people who participated in anti-ICE protests in Minnesota earlier this year, alleging that they, quote, violently opposed the enforcement of federal law by coordinating efforts to block arrests and deportations. All 15 protesters were part of a group called Direct Action Minnesota, which is a coalition of protest groups, and they were each charged with conspiracy to impede or injure a federal officer, with some facing additional charges such as interstate stalking, destruction of government property, and assault on a federal officer. Ukraine has been turning the tides against Russia's invasion recently, and a story just broke that explains why superior intelligence wins wars. The Atlantic just published a piece called The Warrior Witches of Ukraine's Resistance, which details how Ukraine uses an underground intelligence network of honeypots that helped figure out where Russian troops were located by sexting them, so that the Ukrainians would know where to target their drone strikes. If you're not familiar with a honeypot, it is a woman, or a man, pretending to be interested in someone romantically for the true purpose of espionage. Except in this case, the women are called vidmas, a term that appears in Ukrainian folklore and loosely translates to witch or to know, because the Ukrainian folk people get it. They're vidmas. Ukraine has actually been making a lot of progress in the war lately. In addition to successfully striking deep within Russia, including Moscow, half of Russian-occupied Crimea has no power after Ukrainian attacks the other night, which is a shame for the Russians because they were ready for beach season, part of why they want Crimea in the first place. Tulsi Gabbard, who is also known as Russia's girlfriend on Russian state media, they really called her that, is reportedly in a cult, according to an extensive investigation in the Washington Post. And while you could say that about a few people in our government, Tulsi's cult membership has shaped nearly every move she's made in public, ever, in ways we had no idea about until now. It's not technically new information that Gabbard was raised in a breakaway Hare Krishna group, but it is certainly new information that the head of that breakaway group, a man named Chris Butler, the religious leader who Gabbard once described as her guru, was constantly sending her emails from a special email address, which the Washington Post has now reviewed, giving her all sorts of directives, advice, and instructions during her years in Congress on all sorts of matters, including what policies she should embrace, how to conduct herself on television, what legislation she should propose, how she should word that legislation, how to fix her facial tics on TV, and writing her tweets down to the word and time to press send. Also, the emails were weirdly mean and authoritative, and many of her public moves were shown to match the instructions in those emails. But the fun doesn't end there. The reporting also describes an extensive network of fake social media accounts that were involved in a separate effort to boost and defend Tulsi online. And they have been doing that for over a decade. But some of those accounts were even still posting after Gabbard announced she was resigning as the Director of National Intelligence just a few weeks ago. This explains so very much. The Senate appears to have finally found a hint of its spinal column as they voted for a war powers resolution to prevent any more military action in Iran. Yes, this is just days after the military asked Congress for $80 billion. And yes, they could have done this the whole time. And this was actually their 10th attempt at passing such a resolution. One for every year we've been suffering this man. 4 Republicans joined the Democrats in voting against the war. Lisa Murkowski, concerned Susan Collins, Rand Paul, and the voted out Bill Cassidy, while Dino John Fetterman voted for the war, and Mitch McConnell was absent. Still no proof of life on that one. Congress actually had a weirdly productive day yesterday. They passed a rare bipartisan bill that aims to address the shortage of affordable homes in the United States, even though it's not going to be super helpful in the short term. At least they're acknowledging that. It's called the Road to Housing Act, emphasis on the road, and it aims to relax local regulations that prohibit new building, bans private equity firms from buying more than 350 homes at once, and makes it easier and cheaper to build manufactured housing. What the bill does not address, so don't expect this, are high mortgage rates, because Congress does not control the interest rate environment, as Donald Trump has learned to his dismay. And it also doesn't address the spike in home prices over the past 5 years, which is partly a result of low inventory, and it will take some time to build large quantities of new homes. But it's something. Hackers have infiltrated America's living rooms through our smart devices. And according to the Wall Street Journal, these are not just any hackers. They are foreign countries, such as Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. It's always them. Almost like they've been at war with us for years now, and we haven't done anything about it. Anyway, they are reportedly using residential proxy networks to mask their traffic, because those look like normal home Wi-Fi networks, and they're using low-cost consumer devices, such as digital photo frames and video streaming boxes, that are shipped to the United States with backdoor software already pre-installed. Hackers can then use those networks to steal login credentials, and therefore your identity, and can also be used to hack into corporate networks, putting proprietary information at risk. The reporting says that over the past year, Russian hackers were able to steal Microsoft 365 credentials as part of a scam involving fake Microsoft Teams meetings. That's why it's best I don't use Microsoft Teams, on principle. Speaking of AI surveillance, the Trump administration was seen installing AI-powered surveillance towers around the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool yesterday, in the rain, which refilled the pool that they had just drained again. The AI surveillance towers are capable of recording, detecting, and alerting potential threats, and by that I assume they mean people around the public monument. There are also new chain link fences going up around the pool. It's about time he came through on that promise to build the wall. And finally, less than 2 weeks after its big IPO, SpaceX's stock is already way down. It's down 45% from its all-time high, around $225 a share, though it's still up 15% from its initial IPO price of $135. But perhaps a bigger red flag is the fact that just weeks after SpaceX raised $75 billion and IPO'd at over $2 trillion, the company has already issued $25 billion worth of bonds. In other words, they are borrowing more money. In case you're wondering, their bond ratings are in the B's range from all the credit rating agencies. And yes, I'm fully aware that in the B's range is not how any serious financier would talk about bond ratings. But that's just not me. One more thing before we end. There were some primary elections yesterday. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for those results. Until tomorrow, I'm Sammy Sage, and now you know what the is going on. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can get morning announcements first thing when it comes out every day.